Hi, everybody. Welcome to NewsNite for Friday, February 17th. Great to have you with us this week. Big decision from Summit County Sheriff about inmates who are mentally ill. Is it the right decision? We'll talk about it. Plus, a downtown arena in the city of Akron could be a possibility sooner than later. And the Akron Public Schools with a big decision on closing some elementary schools. Those stories and more next on NewsNite. The challenge of maintaining young professionals in the Akron area and fighting brain drain. In a few moments, I'll be joined by Angela Pursuti from the Young Professionals Network to talk about that very topic. But let's get to the topics at hand with our panel. Great to have with us this week Phil Trexler here from the Akron Beacon-Journal. Always great to see Jody Miller here this week on our panel as well. And great to have Ed Esposito here from WAKR. We talk a lot on this broadcast about dollars and cents. Keeping the violent mentally ill out of the Summit County Jail will save some dollars, at least in liability. Does it make sense?
Absolutely.
I think it's a little bit more about than just about the dollars. Yeah. And this is something that the Sheriff Drew Alexander has been pretty forthcoming on for a long time since the McCullough death at the jail, about trying to serve basically two masters, patients that need mental health services when they come in, and there's a lot of them, versus what is the role of the jail? Is the jail really a place to put people who have mental health issues? The answer to that in recent memory has been yes, because in a spate of no good deed goes unpunished, we closed all the mental health facilities that normally would have served that function.
Well, and the interesting thing is, don't forget, it's the violently mentally ill and the violently disabled, you know, who when they get into the jail, you know, cause and can pose a danger to not only themselves, but to the deputies, to the other inmates. And you know, congratulations to Drew Alexander. This is a man who's stepped out and said this. It might be the first time in the country, if what I have read goes through, but it's the first time in the country that I think someone has taken this step and said we need better ways to treat our violently mentally ill.
If you're a violently mentally ill suspect, what do you do with them if you can't take them to the jail?
Well, unfortunately, we've got to find some place in the community to deal with them, because you can't take them and put them in the hospital, you know, because the same kind of a situation is going to deal with, you're going to deal with that in an emergency room in a hospital. But this is a community that has always come together for any number of issues of this sort. And I think there are enough mental health professionals, both in the courts and in the social service agencies that we have here, that we've got to find a way to deal with this kind of a situation. And we've got the professionals. It takes training, it takes additional training, and knowing how to recognize this and take care of it. And I think we can do that. But I think this is the first step in that respect, Eric.
I think, too, we need to keep a little bit of perspective here. That, you know, the headline is, you know, the sheriff's not going to keep taking any, you know, mentally ill patients and what. There's only going to be 2, 3 a week.
Right.
There aren't that many guys that are hard to handle. So let's keep it in perspective here. There's a small number of folks who are going to be faced with this policy. They're going to go to local hospitals. That's where the burden's going to fall. Mm-hmm. Talking to some police officers and prosecutors this week, what they're expecting is there's going to be an assessment made at the jail. They're going to the officer will be rejected and take the patient to a hospital, the inmate, and they'll sedate them, they'll put them under some sort of medication, calm them down, then bring them to the jail. This is not going to happen all that often. So,
but how many does it take to make a big public problem? I mean, if it's only
one or two certainly a lot, and I think it's a great thing that Alexander's doing. He's talked about it since 2006. It goes way back, and certainly it's the right thing to do.
But to Jody's point about there being enough mental health facility, they've been talking about this for 6 years. As Rick Armand pointed out in the Beacon-Journal article, I mean, the sheriff was actually thinking of building another wing on it. I mean, let's not be mistaken about this. The pod, I mean, they use the phrase the pod. It's basically the mental health unit. It's the area of the jail where they house patients with mental issues. It is structured to hold 32. It's already overcrowded. They have, 120 or 115, whatever the number that Rick had in there after talking to Gary James, who runs that. When you walk through the jail and you take a look at it, you understand what's happening on this. The flip side of this is you talk to the medical professionals. The medical professionals, the doctors and the nurses in the ER will tell you, this guy's crazy. This guy's amped up. He's going to hurt somebody else. He's going to hurt us. They don't want to be sending the doctors and the nurses in the ER to the ER because they're dealing with this. We as a society, we've made a decision that we don't want rubber rooms anymore. We don't want straitjackets. There's a lot of talk about whether you over-medicate someone, or can you force them to take their meds? In many cases, I think that was the issue with McCullough. You have people that do have a history of mental health problems, and they become violent. When they don't take their meds, but then you have court rulings that say you can't force someone to take your meds. This is rock and a hard place. This is the ultimate government hell. Is you have to do something for people that have problems, but you keep on handcuffing literally the people with the handcuffs and the doctors and the nurses to do this. When Alexander talks about building a new facility. Even the person that came in and took a look at the facility says, that's really not viable. And they have room there to do that. The question is, does the community do that? Alexander's been having these conversations with the mental health community now for 6 years, active conversations, and they've gone nowhere.
There is no good solution right
They
now.
cannot reach a consensus on this.
But fair enough. Is there no good solution right now?
But there's got to be a solution because we can't continue in the way we're going. And to Drew Alexander's credit, he has raised the issue at a point. It's like he'd gotten to the breaking point. He's not running for re-election. It's not a political ploy on his part. It's an opportunity for him to speak out about something that he sees egregiously wrong, not only in this community, but in communities around the country. Yeah. So there's got to be something done, and I think he has made the first step in that regard.
The problem is it comes down to money, and there's no money to build a new facility that they do need. They need to replace Fallsview, which took them years ago. Now you don't have that. Now you need it. The burden is going to fall on your local hospitals, and they're not going to be happy when you have violent people coming in there. They're not equipped to handle those people. Obviously, the jail is sending a message to the community that they are not equipped to handle these types of folks. Right. So it's going to be a real quandary, and also, too, the assessment that's going to take place at the jail. Who's going to make the decision as to whether a guy's allowed to stay or not stay?
And that comes down to money again, because there are not the psychiatrists who were on staff because they don't have the money to pay them.
They're on a 2 to 3 week wait.
Right.
They can do an original assessment to see is this person well enough and nonviolent enough that we can house them. So then the next question becomes, okay, how do you get them help? You just don't have it.
Right. Well, and for somebody who is brought in right off the street having committed a crime, that doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. Well, the first time that a killer or a rapist who's mentally ill and violent gets to a hospital and creates problems, or gets loose at the hospital, or ties up officers so they can't respond to another crime, it's going to be a lead story in all of our news organizations. And that's why I say, how many does it take to highlight these problems?
That already happens. That happens now.
Yeah.
I mean,
they're not going to take them to the hospital and drop them off and leave. They're going to stay there. The violent folks with serious crimes are going to be, guarded. They're going to be.
But then those officers aren't out. The flip side is those officers aren't out to do other things. That's why I say, in many regards, it looks like there's no real win for anybody at this point.
Right. Well,
dollars to do something.
Listen, City Hospital and Akron General are not Bellevue. There is no criminal ward. There aren't a couple of, again, I hate to use this phrase, and I know my friends in the mental health community do it. You don't have a rubber room to throw them into where they don't hurt anybody else.
Right. Well, as we talk about the jail and we talk about who goes to jail, big news this week from the Summit County Prosecutor's Office, a case that we discussed at length here on NewsNite in years past, the Cage nightclub shooting and Tyree Feaster. Phil, this is the one guy who was in jail. What happens now if they're no longer going to be able to retry him?
Well, he's going to get out of prison. He's being held for the shooting of Sharika Lester. The ironic part is the guy pled guilty to this, to manslaughter, through a series of appeals and mistakes made in the judicial system. He was granted a new trial. He's allowed to retract his guilty plea, and all of a sudden the prosecutors are saying, well, we have an epidemic of amnesia going on with the witnesses. It's the usual thing in the neighborhood where you have people that, that don't snitch law into effect here, and people are saying, I'm not going to testify, and so he's going to go free.
Not just in the neighborhood, though.
Right.
Right? These are people in prison already.
Yeah, there are people who are already in prison.
Well, let's talk about where they do go as we move the conversation now over to newsnight.net.
For more NewsNite content, including extended discussions, full interviews, and the chance to speak your mind about the issues, join us online at newsnight.net.
The University of Akron spending big money to commission a study to look into a new arena for its basketball program and more. This is something we've talked about in theory over the years. Do we need an arena downtown? Should we get something other than the Jar? Now the university's taken some steps. Good way to spend money right now? or are we jumping the gun?
I think the odd thing is that, you know, when Jim Trussell was announced to his vice president position, you know, that the college came out and said, oh, you know, they stepped away from this arena discussion, saying no. They had the Plain Dealer actually pull back a story that said that Trussell talked to the students about an arena. Then all of a sudden, you know, it comes out that they're spending, I don't know, what, $40,000, $50,000 to study, you know, feasibility of an arena. It also strikes me odd that there seems to be a lack of collaboration here between the city of Akron and the University of Akron on a facility that unquestionably is needed, and it's needed not only for the university but also for the city. And it's odd that there seems to be a lack of partnership here between the two. But the money, your man Jim Trussell's here now in town. He's great at raising money and covering up tattoos. So we will probably see a great deal of fundraising coming on. The city needs an arena. It lost out on the Cavs farm team, basketball team. It went to Canton. So certainly I think it's needed, and I think you'll see it at some juncture.
Jody?
I'm ambivalent.
Do we need a downtown
I'm
area?
ambivalent. I'm not sure. We've heard talk about it for years and years. I look at it's an opportunity to bring students into downtown, to increase the pedestrian traffic downtown. So it's obviously a good thing in terms of the restaurants and the businesses downtown. And don't forget, it's across the tracks. It's not like we're talking several miles that you got to go for the arena. You just come down the hill. There's no question that I think the facility that they have now is not adequate. They've got a basketball team right now that is going great. A coach that is leading these guys. They're what, 8-1 in the MAC, I think it is.
11-1.
11-1 in the MAC, and I mean they're drawing a lot of people to those games. So there's not a question that a new facility would be great for that team. Whether or not the city of Akron should be part of it and could fill it is my question. You know, the last thing you want to do is have a facility built, God bless you, a facility built similar to the football stadium, which is absolutely a gorgeous icon, you know, iconic kind of a landmark in the community of the University of Akron community, but nobody goes. So,
well, I think the arena would be different because it's a venue that'll be open year round. Unlike the football.
For what? Football?
Well,
for basketball?
For concerts, for ice capades, for the circus, all sorts of different events that you can bring there. And certainly I think it's the last jewel that Don Pasquale is trying to get, and he's been talking about it for years.
Well, then he should pay for it if he wants to use it for that. If it's for the basketball team and you're going to want to fill the house for 15 games or 30 games, if you have other activities right there. If the university's building it, I mean, supposedly their core audience are the students, and the students live up the hill. So, you know, why wouldn't you build it close by to where the students are? If it's going to be a agent of economic development like Quicken Loans Arena, formerly Gund Arena, was supposed to be, then you would build it downtown. But, what's the real likelihood of filling it up? I mean, what kind of, you talk about getting the ice capades in there. I don't know if the ice capades or Disney on Ice would come in to play Akron when they can play Cleveland. I don't know about the circus and stuff like that. I mean, it depends on what kind of acts that you have in there. If it's a cover band doing Barry Manilow, I don't think they're going to sell out.
Well, they could go to the Civic.
You might pay for it, but I...
Not a cover band doing Barry Manilow, I wouldn't.
But they can go to the Civic, plus what happens to the Jar? I mean, it's just, you kind of have a situation you do in Cleveland where you have two arenas downtown, where you have the, and both of them function on kind of different levels between the Wolstein Center and Quicken Loans Arena, but, one's supposedly pro, one is college level. I think you have to have I think there's a community conversation is what do we want to have? And
there's no community conversation going on because your mayor and your university president apparently aren't speaking to each other.
Well, maybe they can now that the subject has come out, that they are in fact commissioning a study, that they really are serious about talking about it.
Oh, shouldn't they have already been in discussions about that?
Well, maybe, but maybe now they can.
Why aren't they talking?
But Dr. Parenza did, as part of his Vision 2020, announce plans to try to increase enrollment to 40,000.
Right.
And there is additional housing now in the downtown area aimed at students. So it wouldn't necessarily be, as Jody says, just across the tracks. Right. It's just this where they should be spending their money.
Well, and anybody, if you listen to Kasich's State of the State address, I mean, he, regardless of what he said about fracking or any of the other stuff, I mean, one of the things that he was really hitting hard was that this collaborative model between intergovernmental agencies, that includes the University of Akron and in the city. It is silly to think that you would build something like an arena to serve as a home for the university basketball or other or other teams or other facilities. It's silly to think that the city would do that all on its own. It's silly to think that the university would do something like this on a downtown campus that is clearly within the city, that has all sorts of potential economic impact for the city, for them not to be talking about this right now. I think they have talked about it in very broad terms. I do think it's at loggerheads and they're kind of butting up. The city really doesn't have the money to go to borrow on this. So, the mayor would love to have it done, but he'd like to have it done on his terms. Proenza would like to have it done on his campus on his terms.
And they continue to butt heads. Well, from what may open someday to what is now going to close, the Akron Public Schools announcing this week a proposal to close 3 elementary schools at the end of this school year. Of course, this falls back on the levy that failed in November, less money from the state. You didn't pay up back in the fall. Now we've got to close some additional schools. And these are neighborhood schools.
Yes, but it's more than that, too, because don't forget, the levy did not pass. But this is a district that's looking at a $44 million deficit. Closing 3 schools at a cost of under, at this point, maybe $1 million is not going to erase a whole lot of that deficit. And don't forget, Eric, we're talking about a declining demographic population here in Akron. When they started the building plan so many years ago, and they were going to build, replace, or renovate all these buildings, that dealt with a student population that was several thousand students more than what we have now. So I think what they're doing is taking a look at the overall outline of what schools are in the community. You've got Rankin, which I talked to a former principal at Rankin. That school has 144 kids in it right now. It used to have upwards of 700 kids in that school. The neighborhoods are changing. The number of kids going to the schools are changing. And I think actually, yes, they're neighborhood schools. You live right close to Essex, but that school has been slated to be closed anyway. It's a question of doing what you can with what you've got. And if it means closing these schools and dispersing the kids in other neighborhood schools, that's what this district has to do.
It's about fiscal responsibility. It's not needed. It's costly. They need to make some cuts. And the schools are obviously not being utilized properly. And it's the right thing to do. Obviously, if your kids are going to those schools, you're going to be unhappy. You want to have neighborhood schools, but those days are gone. And David James is doing the right thing. He's got budget concerns, and he's got to address them.
At what point do we talk about a big-ticket item like closing a high school, though?
That's coming. That's coming. I mean, can the city really afford 7 high schools?
The state told them they should have 4.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at the population, yes, they should. And I mean, you look at where most of the population right now is. I mean, it's going to fall to Garfield. Do you go back to north, south, east, and west? In some sort of fashion like that. Can you really afford to keep Kenmore open the same time you have Booktoll up the road, the same time you have Firestone up the road?
Kenmore has over 1,000 students, so does Garfield.
Okay.
So closing either one doesn't solve. And North, if you close North, and if you talk to the school officials, which I do from time to time,
as a proud graduate of North,
they would be stuck busing them forever. So
Vikings.
You'd be saving one cost, and then you'd end up busing the kids forever over the 2-mile rule to get into their high schools.
You cannot afford to keep these buildings open. I mean, this is just fact of life. When you go from 30,000 students to 28 to 25, onwards down to 20, again, as Jody pointed out, the demographics just aren't there. Akron's becoming an older city that doesn't have as many kids, which is why levies don't pass, by the way, because the people that are still left, their kids are already out of there, don't vote for these things because they think they've already done their duty.
Finish that topic as we move the conversation now over to NewsNite.net.
On NewsNite.net, we cover a broader range of topics than we can on the air in 27 minutes. Be part of the conversation on our Facebook page and at NewsNite.net.
Maintaining professionals in the Akron area, brain drain as they call it. How are we doing with that? Joining me this week is Angela Pursuti from the Young Professionals Network, a program through the Greater Akron Chamber. Thanks for being with us this week.
Thank you.
How big of a deal is this to keep young professionals here in a city like Akron?
Well, it's a very big deal because young professionals, which we say anywhere from 20 to 40 years old, it's not a problem that's just unique to Akron. Several communities throughout the entire country are starting to notice that young professionals are leaving in mass quantities in search of better opportunities elsewhere. And when they leave, they're taking their knowledge with them, they're taking their money with them, so it's having dramatic impacts on the local economy. So the Young Professionals Initiative here in Greater Akron is extremely strong and thriving and important because we want to keep our young people here. So we're working to find ways to create a higher level of attachment to the community.
How do you do that?
Well, it certainly takes all hands on deck, and the chamber, we're very fortunate because we're supported through all the local companies, business leaders, but we're trying to act as a hub for the Young Professionals Initiative, and we do that by creating professional development opportunities, social opportunities, personal development opportunities, and that's through a variety of activities and volunteers, obviously. So I work with a phenomenal group of young professionals that are helping me build and refine some of these opportunities through 3 specific areas that we work on.
Okay.
Next generation leadership, which is focused on professional development, creating access to business and community leaders, and helping them hone some of their professional skills. The second area is marketing the region, where we're working with local organizations, the HR departments, on how they can refine their attraction and retention initiatives. And community engagement is the third area. How do we educate YPs on the importance of public policy, who the government officials are, how they can get involved, sort of how do we make public policy cool?
I'm a polymer graduate from the University of Akron. I'm 22. I have this degree I just paid big money for. Raleigh and Jacksonville have better weather. How do you convince me that Akron is a place to live, work, and play and stay?
Well, like I said, we really want to create a higher level of attachment. Studies show that the more attached people are to their community, the more likely they are to put down roots. So we're showing them, obviously we don't have the beach, but we're not comparing this community to places that have a Beverly Hills or a Miami. We're not that. But we are a place that has wonderful opportunities to raise families, wonderful opportunities for professional growth, wonderful opportunities for nightlife. And we do it, we have a big city feel in a smaller city. So we're never going to be New York City. We don't want to be New York City. We're not going to be Chicago. But we do have a lot of wonderful opportunities. And what we're trying to do is really educate young professionals on what those areas are that they can get involved in, how they can get more engaged within their organizations, how they can get more engaged civically, how they can connect to each other, and how they can connect to our business and community leaders, because the business and community leaders really want to help. They tell me all the time, tell me what to do and I'll do it. How can I open myself up to these young professionals to show them that this is a great place to live, work, and play?
When you talk about business professionals, you talk about ways to get them here.
Yes.
To begin with, do we have enough internship opportunities around here where people are getting the experience when they need to?
Yes, we do. And internship opportunities are so important because those are what open the door to potential jobs in the future. We actually, through the Young Professionals Network in the Chamber, we actually started a new internship website called nextgenintern.com. And we're working with local organizations for them to post all of their opportunities, to educate them on, once they secure an intern, how do they manage an internship. And then also on the other side is for college students, how do they go out there and market themselves? How do they secure their own internship, and what do they do once they land the position? So it's sort of a one-stop shop for internships.
Where is the disconnect then? Because we have a record number of students attending our local universities. They're attaining degrees. They have high-tech educations. So where do we lose them? Do we lose them right after graduation? Do we lose them after that first job when they're looking up at a promotion? What's that key point there that we need to keep them?
Oh, I think we lose them right after graduation. And of course, jobs are always an issue. So that's, and anywhere you go, that's going to be an issue. So that's currently obviously on the forefront. But we really are battling strong negative perceptions of the community, and that
like
is
what? What do you say?
That there's nothing here in Akron. Akron has nothing to offer. That there's nothing to do. That there's no jobs.
Through the eyes of a young person.
Yes. So we're really working on battling some of those chronic negative perceptions that are plaguing this area, and that's really what the Young Professionals Network strives to do every day, is battle some of those perceptions and really educate young people that there is opportunity here and that they can thrive here professionally and personally.
So do we need to make Akron cool?
Yes, we want to. Akron is cool. We just have to show them that it is.
So then how big of a part does the downtown play in that? Having restaurants, having activities, having recreation.
It plays a huge part because a lot of after-hours nightlife takes place here. A lot of jobs are here. So it's like a central area for young professionals. And with everything that the university is doing, the local housing around here, it really takes, like I said, all hands on deck. So we're working with all of our community partners on this initiative, and it's a very important initiative.
Do young professionals buy houses? Are they a good candidate to buy some of the housing stock we have here?
I think so, but I think that goes back to the whole jobs question. If the jobs are here, they'll come. But in the meantime, I think that there's a lot that they can do here that can show them that this is the place that they want to raise their families. This is the place that they want to be.
So when you say you need volunteers, I'll let you make a pitch there. What do you need volunteers to do?
Well, I need them to help me develop some of these programs. The Young Professionals Network has launched several new programs in the last, I would say, year and a half. And so I need the volunteers to come on board, help me with promoting these programs, help me with growing them, and help me develop new ones.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun.
So is it 10 hours a week? Is it, here, there? Or?
Depending on which committee that they get involved with, I usually say 5 to 10 hours a month total would be max. But we really tell them this is a mutually beneficial relationship. They're coming and volunteering on one of the committees, but they're also getting something out of it. They're meeting new people, they're helping making a positive impact in Akron, and they're part of a really exciting initiative.
Okay, and last question, how do you measure success? How do you know if the initiatives you're putting out there are working?
Well, specifically for the young professionals, the more young professionals we have involved and the more that these programs are growing, we know from the YPN perspective that it's working. But in the long run, when we start seeing more young professionals staying here, having families here, working here for long periods of time, then we know that we're doing the right thing.
Let's hope that's where we're headed. Angela Prasuti, thank you so much from the
Thank
Young
you.
Professionals Network. Thank our panel as well. To Jody, Phil, and Ed, and thank you for watching. Again, you can watch this broadcast again. Also read our blog and behind the scenes over at NewsNite.net. Have a great week, everybody. I'll see you right here next Friday for Newsnight. Good night.